This is the overnight desk at the National Time and Frequency Service. And I'm going to keep talking, because right now talking is the only part of my job I can still do correctly. My name is Daniel Voss. I'm a frequency analyst. That means most nights I sit in a quiet room in Colorado and watch numbers that almost never change. The atomic clocks here are the heartbeat of the country. Every traffic light, every bank transaction, every phone call, every GPS fix in this hemisphere borrows the time we keep. People don't think about us. That's the whole point. When we do our job, nobody knows we exist. So I want you to understand how boring tonight was supposed to be. At 2:14 in the morning, our master clock disagreed with the sky. That sounds dramatic. It isn't, not at first. We compare our atomic standard against astronomical observations constantly, the rotation of the Earth itself, measured against the fixed positions of distant stars. The two are never in perfect lockstep. The planet wobbles, tides drag at it, earthquakes shift its mass. Over years, we add a leap second here and there to keep clocks and sky aligned. It's normal for them to drift apart by a sliver of a second. What is not normal is for them to drift apart by 4 milliseconds in a single night. I caught it on the comparison log. A little climbing number where there should have been a flat line. My first thought was equipment. It's always equipment. A bad sensor, a software fault, a cable somebody kicked loose. I ran the diagnostic. Everything green. I pulled the redundant feed from the secondary array. Same number, climbing. I'm telling you this in order because order is what I have. The reading meant one specific thing, and the thing it meant was absurd, so I didn't say it out loud. I just sat there with my coffee going cold and watched the gap widen. And I did the only sane thing, which was assume I was wrong. I called the observatory partner site in Hawaii. Graveyard shift like me. A woman named Priya picked up, and before I could finish my sentence, she said, "You're seeing it too." Not a question, a statement. She'd been staring at her own version of my number for 20 minutes, trying to find the courage to call somebody. We compared. Her instruments and mine are completely independent. Different hardware, different method, different ocean. They agreed. The planet was not keeping time. I want to be very clear about what I knew at 2:14 and what I only suspected. At 2:14, I knew the measurement. I did not yet know the cause. I told myself there were 100 boring explanations, and I'd find one before sunrise. I was wrong about that, and you already know I was wrong, because I'm still talking. Here is the list of boring explanations I went through, so you can watch me run out of them. Explanation 1. Instrument error. Killed already. 2 independent sites on 2 continents don't share a hallucination. Explanation 2. A major seismic event. A big enough earthquake actually can change the planet's rotation by a tiny amount. The 2011 quake in Japan shortened the day by about a microsecond. Real, measurable, terrifying in its own way. But a microsecond is a millionth of a second. We were watching milliseconds, thousands of times larger. And there was no quake. The seismic feeds were quiet. Quieter than usual, actually, which I noted and didn't think about, and which I'd give a great deal to be able to ask somebody about now. Explanation 3. Software. We dug into the timing code together, Priya and I, line by line, on a shared screen. 2 strangers who'd never met working at 3 in the morning, like our lives depended on it. They didn't yet. The code was clean. That's when I stopped guessing and started measuring properly. If the Earth's rotation were genuinely slowing, the day would get longer. Not in a way you'd feel. You'd never feel it, but the instruments would. The length of one rotation, one true day, sunrise to sunrise, to put it crudely, should be stretching. So I set up a direct measurement, locked our atomic standard against the transit of a specific reference star, and I waited for it to cross the meridian, and I clocked it. The star came late. Stars don't come late. Stars are the most punctual thing in the universe. You can set well. You can set a clock by them. That's the entire point. The reference star I was watching has crossed that exact line in the sky at the same instant, give or take a hair, for as long as humans have had instruments good enough to notice. Tonight, it was late by a margin that made my hands go cold. I called it in to my shift supervisor, woke him up. He's a good man, 26 years here, and I expected him to tell me I'd made a rookie error and to go back and check my work. Instead, he was quiet for a long time, long enough that I asked if he was still there. He said, "Run it again, then call Washington. Don't call me, call them. And Daniel, write everything down. Timestamps on everything, starting now." I asked him why the timestamps. He said, "Because if this is real, the timestamps are the only thing that's going to make sense afterward." I didn't understand that yet. I do now. So that's what this is. This is me writing everything down, out loud, with timestamps, because the man told me to, and because I don't know what else to hold on to. It's 3:02 in the morning, Mountain Time, and as far as my instruments can tell, the rotation of the Earth is slowing down. Not catastrophically, not in a way anyone has noticed, but measurably, steadily, and the rate is increasing. The first thing a scientist does with a frightening number is name it, because a named thing feels like a thing you can fight. We named it the lag. The lag at 3:02 meant that one full rotation of the planet was now running roughly 8 milliseconds long. By 3:40, it was 11. By 4:15, it was 16. I plotted the points and drew the line through them, and the line was not flat, and it was not even straight. It curved gently upward, accelerating. Whatever was happening, it was happening a little faster each hour. I want you to sit with how strange this is, because the strangeness is the whole story. Nothing slows the Earth down. The Earth is a ball of rock and metal weighing 6 trillion kilograms, spinning in the frictionless dark. And it has been spinning at almost exactly the same rate for billions of years. There is no break. There is no hand. The energy required to slow it even this much in a single night is a number with so many zeros that when I calculated it, I assumed I'd made a mistake, and I checked, and I hadn't. The energy was going somewhere, or coming from somewhere. Conservation of momentum is not a guideline. It is the law underneath all the other laws. Something was breaking the law. Priya put it best, around 4 in the morning, in a flat, exhausted voice over the line. She said, "We're not measuring weather. We're measuring the floor of reality, and the floor is moving." By then, we weren't alone. Washington was awake. The observatory networks were lighting up. Every serious timekeeping and astronomical facility in the night hemisphere was independently confirming the same impossible thing. And the ones in daylight were spinning up their instruments to be ready. Nobody had a cause. Everybody had the same number. There's a particular sound a room full of professionals makes when they realize the problem is bigger than all of them. It's not panic. It's a kind of hush, the hum of people lowering their voices without deciding to. Our operations floor made that sound around 4:30. I heard it happen. I was part of it. And underneath the hush, the instruments kept their quiet, steady chatter, the soft tick of comparators, the hum of the cooling systems on the clock vault. all the small machine noises of a building whose only job is to know what time it is. Those machines were doing their jobs perfectly. They were telling us the truth. The truth was that time, the real kind, the kind the sky keeps, was slipping out from under us by a little more every hour. And the sun was not going to rise on schedule. Here's the thing nobody on the floor wanted to say first, so I'll say it. If the day is getting longer, then dawn is getting later. Not by much, not yet. By the math, the delay was still under a minute. Sunrise would come maybe 40 seconds behind the published time, a number no human eye could catch. You cannot see 40 seconds of sunrise. The almanac says one time, the sun shows up a breath later. And not one person on the planet notices, because not one person stands at the window with an atomic clock waiting to catch the sun being late. But we were. And we knew that 40 seconds tonight meant more tomorrow. The curve told us that. If the rate kept climbing the way it had been climbing all night, the delay wouldn't stay invisible. Tonight, seconds. In a week, minutes. In a month, if it didn't stop, you'd start to feel it. The day would feel long, the light would come wrong. And we had no reason, none, to believe it was going to stop, because we didn't know why it had started. I called my wife at 5:10. She was asleep. I shouldn't have called. I told her I loved her and that I might be late, that work had a situation, that I'd explain later. She said okay, half awake, told me to drive safe, and hung up. Normal. The most normal phone call in the world. I sat there holding the dead phone and thought, that might be the last completely normal conversation we ever have. Then I put the phone down because I had a job, and the job was real, even if nothing else was. Sunrise was due, locally, at 5:51. I marked the official time. I locked the instruments to the eastern horizon. I told the floor to go quiet. And we waited, the whole room of us, the best timekeepers in the country, to watch the sun be late by an amount no one but us could perceive. 5:51 came. The horizon stayed dark. I started counting. The horizon stayed dark. And I counted out loud. And the room counted with me without being asked. 30, 35, 40. At 41 seconds, the first edge of the sun cleared the mountains. 41 seconds late. Exactly what the curve predicted. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt something drop out of the bottom of my chest, because a prediction coming true is comforting when you understand the mechanism. And we understood nothing. We had a curve that worked and a cause that didn't exist. We could tell you precisely how late the sun would be, and we could not tell you why the sun was late at all. The sun came up gold and ordinary over Colorado. 41 seconds behind schedule, and it was the most frightening sunrise of my life. Here's what the daylight changed. It gave the rest of the world its instruments back. All night, only the dark half of the planet had been watching. Now the sun crawled west, late everywhere it touched, and station after station picked up the count and confirmed it. Late in Kansas, late in California, late by the time the morning rolled on, in the Pacific. The lag wasn't a local glitch or a regional anomaly. It was the whole planet, every longitude, the entire turning ball of it, running slow together. That's when it stopped being our secret. The first public sign wasn't an announcement. It was the GPS network. Satellite navigation works by timing. Your phone figures out where it is by measuring, to the nanosecond, how long signals take to arrive from satellites overhead. The whole system assumes the ground beneath it is turning at a fixed, known rate. When the ground started turning slow, The math underneath every navigation fix on Earth developed a small, growing error. By 7 in the morning, people's phones were putting them in the wrong place, only by a few meters, enough that the more sensitive systems noticed. Automated trading platforms that timestamp transactions to the microsecond started rejecting each other's records as impossible a trade in London marked as arriving before it was sent, because the two clocks no longer agreed on what now meant. Power grids that synchronize across thousands of miles started throwing synchronization faults. Nothing failed catastrophically. Everything just developed a tremor, a wrongness, a low hum of small errors multiplying. I watched it cascade on the monitoring feeds, and I understood finally what my supervisor had meant about the timestamps. The whole modern world is a cathedral built on the assumption that time is steady. We had quietly, invisibly, become the foundation that everything stood on. And the foundation was shifting. At 7:48, the first news alert went out. Not about the Earth, about GPS. Navigation systems experiencing widespread minor disruptions. A technical glitch. A thing for the IT desk. People read it and shrugged and went to work. I wanted to climb through the screen and scream at them. I called Priya. Priya. She was still on shift, 14 hours now, running on nothing. I asked her how she was holding up. She said, "Daniel, I did the long math, the really long math, the where does this end math." I asked her what she found. She was quiet. Then she said, "Call me back when your shift's over," not on a recorded line. That's all she'd say. My shift was supposed to end at 8. It didn't end. Nobody's shift ended that day. At 9:15, we got pulled into an emergency briefing. Video link. Dozens of faces in dozens of windows. Observatory directors. Agency heads. A few people whose titles I didn't recognize and whose backgrounds were deliberately blank. The kind of people who show up when something is genuinely wrong. A geophysicist presented first. Sharp, careful, clearly terrified under the professionalism. She walked us through what we knew, which I've already told you. And then she got to the part we didn't know, which was everything that mattered. She said the energy accounting didn't close. The Earth was losing rotational energy, an amount equivalent to, and she paused here, and you could see her decide to just say it. An amount equivalent to thousands of the largest nuclear weapons ever built, every single hour, and climbing. That energy was not turning into heat. We'd see it. The oceans would be warming, the crust would be straining, there'd be quakes and tides and catastrophe. There was none of that. The energy was simply leaving, going somewhere we could not measure, by a route we could not detect. Momentum doesn't vanish, she said. It can't. So either our understanding of physics is wrong, which I doubt, or the momentum is being transferred to something we can't see, something coupled to the entire planet at once. A voice asked the obvious question. Coupled how? By what? She didn't have an answer. None of them did. That was the whole briefing, really a room full of the smartest people on Earth, admitting, one after another, that they had no idea. Then one of the blank background people spoke. Older man, flat affect. The voice of someone who delivered bad news for a living. He said the rate of deceleration had a shape. We'd all seen the curve. But he'd had the curve analyzed by people whose job is finding patterns in noise. And the curve wasn't random, and it wasn't a simple physical decay. It was too regular, too smooth. It increased in a way that looked, to his analysts, managed, controlled, like something easing a brake on, gradually, deliberately, the way you'd slow a heavy thing you didn't want to crack. The room went silent on that word. Managed. I'm a frequency analyst. I deal in measurement, not speculation. But I'd been staring at that curve all night, and I'd had the same thought and pushed it away every time. Because it was not a scientific thought. It was an animal thought. The thought that the smoothness of the curve felt intentional. That whatever was slowing us down was being careful. The briefing ended with no decisions, because there were no decisions to make. You can't evacuate a planet. You can't fight a thing you can't find. You can only measure it and tell the truth and try to keep the cathedral standing a little longer. My assignment was the same as before. Keep the time, keep measuring, keep writing it down. I went back to my desk. The lag was at 26 seconds per rotation now, and accelerating. And I called Priya back on my personal phone, off the recorded line. Priya answered on the first ring like she'd been holding the phone. I asked her what the long math said. She talked for a long time. I'm going to give you the short version, the version that matters, because the equations don't help you, and they didn't help me. What helped, in the worst way, was the conclusion. She said, assume the curve holds. Assume whatever's slowing us keeps easing the brake on at the rate it's been easing it. You don't need it to slam the brakes. You just need it to keep doing exactly what it's doing. Run that forward. The day gets longer. First by seconds, then minutes, then hours. You'd start to feel it within a couple of weeks a day that ran 26 hours, then 30, then more. The light would smear. Mornings would arrive at the wrong clock time, then the wrong part of the night, then drift loose from the clock entirely. The sun would hang in the sky longer and longer on the day side, baking it. The night side would freeze in a darkness that wouldn't lift on schedule. And eventually her voice was very steady when she got here. The steadiness of someone who'd already cried about it hours ago and was past it. Eventually, the planet stops. One side faces the sun. Forever. The other faces the dark. Forever. The day side cooks. The night side freezes solid. A thin band between them, twilight, might survive a while. The oceans on the hot side would boil off and rain down, frozen on the cold side, and the whole machinery of weather and life that depends on the planet turning would simply end. She called it tidal locking. It's not even exotic. The moon is tidally locked to us. That's why we only ever see one face of it. It's the natural end state of a small thing orbiting a big thing, given enough time. It's supposed to take billions of years. Something was doing it to the Earth in a matter of weeks. I asked the question I had to ask. How long? If the curve held, how long until it stopped turning? She didn't answer right away. I heard her breathing. She said, best fit to the data we have right now? 40 to 60 days. The error bars are huge. Could be sooner. Probably not later. 40 to 60 days. I looked out the window of the operations floor. Sunlight on the mountains. Cars on the distant highway. People driving to jobs, to schools, to errands. Living inside the most normal morning imaginable. Not one of them knew. The wrongness was still hiding in the decimal places, in the GPS jitter, in the trading glitches. The world looked completely fine. I thanked her. I didn't know what else to say. Before she hung up, she said one more thing, quietly, almost to herself. She said, Daniel, things that are managed have a reason. I keep wondering what we're being slowed down for. Then the line went dead, and I sat with that, and I had no answer, and I still don't. The first day people actually noticed was the third day. By the third day, the lag wasn't seconds, it was minutes. The official time and the sun had drifted apart by enough that you could catch it without an instrument if you knew to look. Sunset came late, noticeably late. The kind of thing where you glance up at the evening and think, it's brighter out than the clock says it should be. And you don't think anything more of it because who questions the sky? But there were enough people now. Enough almanac keepers and amateur astronomers and farmers and pilots and night shift workers who lived by the light. They started comparing notes online. The sun is late. No, really. Measure it. And they measured it, with sticks and shadows and phone apps, thousands of them. And they were right. And the official silence couldn't hold against thousands of people pointing at the sky and agreeing. The announcement came on the fourth day, calm, carefully worded. Scientists have detected a small change in the Earth's rotation. There is no immediate danger. Researchers are studying the phenomenon. Citizens should continue normal activities. Every word of that was technically true and completely a lie. No immediate danger, true today. Continue normal activities. What else were people supposed to do? But the announcement didn't say 40 to 60 days. It didn't say tidal locking. It didn't say managed. It gave people a small true fact to stand on and hid the cliff behind it. I understood why. I did. You tell 8 billion people the planet is going to stop turning in 2 months, and you don't save anyone. You just trade 2 months of order for 2 months of chaos. There's no bunker for this. There's nowhere to run. The kindest thing a government can do, maybe, is let people keep their normal mornings as long as the mornings last. But I knew. The whole floor knew. Priya knew. We were the ones holding the real number, and the real number was a weight that didn't share. I went home on the fourth day for the first time since it started. My wife had made dinner. The kids were doing homework. The evening light came through the window late, golden, beautiful, wrong. My daughter looked up from the table and said, "Dad, isn't it weird how it's still light out? It feels late." I said, "Yeah, sweetheart, it does." And I sat down and ate dinner with my family in the long, late, lying light. And I didn't tell them. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I want to tell you about the day the measurements started disagreeing, because that's the day the story stopped being about physics and started being about something else. By the second week, the lag was hours. A day now ran close to 30 hours. People had stopped pretending it was normal. Schools shifted to flexible hours. Some workplaces gave up on clocks entirely and ran on daylight. There was a strange, suspended calm over everything. Not panic, not yet. More like the held breath of a whole species waiting to find out how bad it really was. The official line still said, "Studying the phenomenon." Most people had done their own math by then, or read someone else's. And the words tidal locking were everywhere now. And the held breath was the sound of billions of people deciding, privately, how they wanted to spend whatever was left. I was still at my desk. Most of us were. There's a kind of person who, told the world is ending, will go check the instruments one more time because the checking is who they are. I'm that kind of person. So is Priya. So was everyone on that operations floor. And on the 15th day, the instruments started telling different stories. It began with a station in the Pacific, a small automated observatory on an island, reliable for years. Its measurement of the lag came in low, not wrong-looking, just low. It reported the planet turning a little faster than everyone else's instruments said. We flagged it as a fault, sent a query, no response. Tried the backup link. Nothing. The station had simply gone quiet, mid-sentence, its last reading hanging there, too fast. Then a station in the Southern Ocean did the same thing. Low reading, then silence. Then 3 more, scattered. No pattern of geography I could find. Each one reported the lag as smaller than its neighbors right before it went dark. As if, for those stations, the Earth had briefly remembered how to spin, and then the station stopped reporting at all. I sat with a map of dead stations, and I tried every boring explanation again, the way I had on the first night. Power failure, storm, equipment age. But the readings before each blackout were the thing I couldn't explain. They weren't random failures. Each station saw the lag get better. Locally, impossibly, in the instance before it died. I called the geophysicist from the briefings. She'd given out her number to the timekeeping leads. She picked up sounding like she hadn't slept in the full 15 days, which she probably hadn't. I told her what I was seeing, the low readings, the silence after. She was quiet for a while. Then she said something I've thought about every hour since. She said, "We've been measuring this as if it's happening to the whole planet evenly. A uniform slowdown. But what if it isn't uniform? What if it's being applied in pieces, locally? And the places where the slowing pauses or reverses, just for a moment, are the places where it's, I don't know, finishing, completing whatever it's doing there. And then there's nothing left to measure, so the station goes dark." I asked her what she meant by finishing. She said she didn't know. She said it the way you say, "I don't know when you actually mean I have a guess, and I'm too frightened to say it out loud." Then she said, "Daniel, where are those dead stations? Pull them up, all of them. Don't look at the geography. Look at the time. Look at when each one went dark, in real universal time, and tell me if you see it." I pulled them up. I looked at the times, and I saw it. The stations weren't dying at random times. They were dying in sequence, and the sequence had a direction. I plotted them not where they were, but when they went silent, ordered by the moment of their last reading. And then I put that order back onto the map, and it drew a line. A slow, ragged, moving line, sweeping across the surface of the Earth. Each station went dark as the line reached it. The line moved steadily, patiently, the way the curve had moved on the first night, managed, even, controlled, and it was crossing the planet from one side toward the other, not east to west like the sun, not following any rotation or weather pattern. Its own direction, its own purpose. A line that didn't care about our geography at all, sweeping across continents and oceans alike. And behind it, the instruments went quiet, one after another, like lights going out in a house as someone walks through it turning them off. I showed Priya. She went very still on the video link. She said, "It's not slowing the whole planet at once. It never was. We just couldn't tell from far away. It's working its way across, section by section, and where it's already passed." She stopped. I finished it. Where it's already passed, the slowing is done. The line is the edge of where it's finished. We sat with that. And then I asked the question that had been crawling up my spine since the briefing, the animal question, the one I kept pushing down. I said, "Priya, if something has to slow each section by hand, one at a time, in order that's not a force of nature. Gravity doesn't take its time. Gravity doesn't go section by section. That's—" "Don't," she said. "That's work," I said anyway. "Somebody's doing it by hand." The word sat between us on the line. Hand, not literally. But the shape of the thing was the shape of labor, of a task being performed methodically across the surface of the world by something that had decided the world needed to stop and was going to make sure it stopped properly, evenly, with care, leaving nothing unfinished. Things that are managed have a reason, she'd said 2 weeks ago. I keep wondering what we're being slowed down for. I asked her where the line was heading. If you traced it forward, if you drew it out across the rest of the planet, where did it end? What was the last place the line would reach, the last section to be finished? She ran it while I held the phone. I could hear her typing. I could hear her stop typing. She said my name. Just my name. Daniel. In a voice I hadn't heard her use before. And I knew before she said it. The line was sweeping toward the interior of the North American continent. On its current heading, at its current pace, the last region it would cross, the final section, the place where whatever this was would finish its work, was a wide band running right through the center of the country, right through Colorado, right through us. I looked up from the phone. Out the operations floor windows, the light was wrong again. The long, late, wrong light of a day that now ran 31 hours. The mountains stood there exactly as they always had. And somewhere out past them, moving toward us, patient and invisible and certain, was the edge of the line. The only thing left to know was how long until the line reached us. So we figured out how long, because that's who we are. Even now, even at the end, we measure the thing that's coming for us, and we write the number down. I tracked the line for the next 2 days. It helped to have a job. The line moved at a steady pace across the surface, not fast, not slow, just relentless. The way a tide comes in, the way a shadow crosses a field. I marked every station as it went dark. I got good at predicting which one would go next. I'd watch a station's reading start to drop, the lag getting better, the impossible local quickening, and I'd know it had maybe an hour left before silence. I was never wrong. It's a strange thing to become an expert in the schedule of your own ending. By my measurements, the line would reach central Colorado in roughly 9 days. 9 days, give or take a day. The error bars were small now. The line was very regular. 9 days until the last section, until the work reached us, until our instruments, the master clocks of the country, the heartbeat I'd tended my whole career, would show the lag start to get better, impossibly better, and then go quiet mid-sentence like all the others. I didn't know what happened when the line passed. Nobody did. The stations didn't report it. They just stopped. Maybe the slowing simply completed, and the section settled into its final, stopped state, and life went on. Frozen, skied, but alive. Maybe something else. The not knowing was its own kind of terror. Worse than a clear catastrophe, because you couldn't even picture it to brace against it. I went home that night. Night, the word meant less every day, and I made a decision I'd been circling for 2 weeks. I was going to tell my family, not the world. The world had made its choice, and I understood it. But my wife, my kids, they deserved to know how long, and to choose how to spend it, and not to find out by watching a station light go dark on a screen the way I had to. They deserved the truth from someone who loved them. I rehearsed it on the drive home. There's no good way. There are no words that make "the planet is going to stop turning," and the line reaches us in 9 days, into something a parent can say to a child. So I didn't find good words. I just decided to find true ones. I pulled into the driveway. The house was warm and lit. Through the window I could see them at the table. I went in. I'm not going to give you everything I said to my family that night. Some of it isn't for a recording. Some of it is just ours. But I'll tell you the shape of it, because it matters to what comes after. I sat them down. My wife already knew something was deeply wrong. She'd known for weeks, the way the person who loves you always knows, even when you think you're hiding it. The kids were scared before I said a word. because kids read the room better than anyone. I told them the truth, in the simplest words I had. The Earth is slowing down. It's going to stop turning. I called it a change, moving across the world. And it's going to reach us in about 9 days. I told them I didn't know exactly what happens when it does. I told them I wasn't going to lie to them about that, because I'd rather they have the truth from me than anything else from anyone. My daughter asked if we were going to die. I said I didn't know. I said that was the honest answer. I said that whatever happened, we were going to be together, and that I would not leave them, that whatever the line was, it was going to find me right here with my arms around them. My son, who's 12 and tries so hard to be brave, asked if there was anything we could do, anything at all. And I told him the thing I'd been turning over for 2 weeks, the thing that was either the only comfort left or just the truth. I said, the people at my work, we're still measuring it, still writing it down, still telling each other what's real exactly to the second. I said that even if we can't stop it, somebody has to be the ones who saw it clearly and didn't look away and kept telling the truth right up until the end. I said that's a thing worth doing. Maybe the last thing worth doing. He thought about it. He nodded. Then my wife reached across the table and took my hand. And we sat there together in the long, late light. And outside the window, the day refused to end. And somewhere to the west, the line kept coming. 9 days is both no time at all and an enormous amount of time, depending on the hour. I kept going to work. I know how that sounds. But the operations floor had become the only place where the thing made sense, where there were other people holding the same weight, and where I could watch the line and know exactly how much time my family had. Knowledge was the only power I had left, and I wasn't going to give it up. The world in those 9 days was not what I expected. I expected chaos. There was some, there's always some. But mostly there was a strange, aching tenderness that came over everything. The days were 33, 35, 38 hours long now. The sun hanging in the sky like it had forgotten how to leave. And people stopped pretending to follow clocks at all. They slept when they were tired. They gathered. The roads were full of people driving to be with the ones they loved while they still could. Phone networks were jammed not with panic, but with calls, people calling everyone they'd ever cared about, saying the things you save up a lifetime to say and usually never do. The line kept coming. I watched it cross the Pacific entirely, watched it come up the West Coast, station after station, the lag improving impossibly, then silence. I updated my family every night. 7 days. 6, 5. On the 5th day, something changed in the data, and it changed everything I thought I understood. A station went dark, and then, 11 hours later, it came back. It came back. I stared at the screen. A station in the path of the line, gone silent like all the others, suddenly reporting again. I checked the timestamp 4 times. It was real. The station was alive, and its reading showed the Earth turning, not stopped, turning, slow, much slower than normal. A day stretched out to nearly 40 hours, but turning, steady, no longer decelerating. The lag had stopped growing. For that one station, behind the line, the slowing was done, and the planet had not stopped. It had settled into a new, slow, stable rotation. I called Priya so fast I knocked my coffee over. She'd seen it. She was already running the numbers. And her voice, for the first time in 3 weeks, had something in it that wasn't dread. She said, "It's not stopping us, Daniel. Look at the curve behind the line. It's not driving us to zero. It's driving us to a new value, a slower one, a stable one. It's not killing the rotation, it's resetting it. I asked her what that meant, what it meant for what happened when the line passed over a place. She said she didn't know for certain, but the station that came back was proof of one thing. Passing through the line was not the end. Something happened, something that took 11 hours, something that knocked the instruments offline, something we couldn't see from outside. And then there was an after, a slower world, but a turning one. A morning that still came, just later. A planet that still lived, just changed. For the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself feel something other than dread. Then I looked at the line on the map, 4 days out from Colorado, and I thought, in 4 days, we find out what happens in those 11 hours. The station that came back gave us something we'd never had, a witness from the other side of the line. It was automated, no people, just instruments. But instruments record. And when it reconnected, it dumped its full log from the blackout. Everything it had captured in the 11 hours it was dark to us. We pulled that log apart, bite by bite, the whole floor, hunting for any clue about what the passing of the line actually was. Most of it was what you'd expect. Power fluctuations, sensors maxing out and resetting. The ordinary chaos of a machine being overwhelmed by something it wasn't built to measure. But the seismometer, the ground motion sensor, had caught something. During the blackout hours, while the line was passing over that spot, the ground had moved. Not violently, not an earthquake. A slow, deep, rhythmic motion, very low frequency, almost too low to call sound. A pulse, steady, patient, repeating with a regularity that no natural process produces. Priya ran it through analysis. The pulse had a period, a beat, and the beat matched, and when she told me this, I felt the hair stand up on my arms. The beat matched the rate at which the line moved across the earth. Whatever was sweeping across the planet was keeping time. It had a rhythm. It was, for lack of any better word, counting. Working through the world in measured beats, like a metronome, like a heartbeat, like someone tightening bolts in sequence and not skipping a single one. The geophysicist, when we sent it to her, called back within the hour. She'd had her people model what kind of process could couple to an entire planet's rotation, transfer that much momentum invisibly, and do it in a slow traveling wave with a steady beat. She said the honest answer was that nothing in physics did that, nothing natural. The energy had to go somewhere, and the only model that closed the books, the only one where the numbers actually balanced, required the momentum to be transferred into something we had no instrument for, something that touched the whole planet but lived outside everything we knew how to detect. She said, very carefully, in the voice of a scientist forced to the edge of her science, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I can't. But I'll tell you what it's like. It's like the planet was spinning too fast for something. And that something is slowing it down to a speed it can use. Carefully, so as not to break it. The way you'd slow a centrifuge before you open it. The way you'd ease something down that you intend to keep. Intend to keep? I asked her, keep for what? She said the words no scientist ever wants to say. She said, that's not a physics question anymore. 3 days until the line reached us. I had a recovered signal, a steady, inhuman beat, and a planet being eased down gently by something that meant to keep it. I went home. The day had been going for 41 hours. The kids were asleep in the endless evening light. I lay down next to my wife, and I did not sleep. And I listened the whole long, bright night. For a beat I couldn't hear yet. I'm going to compress these last days, because they compress themselves. Time stopped meaning what it used to mean, And not just because of the rotation. 3 days out, the line crossed into the western states. The stations there went dark in their sequence, and then, on schedule, 11 hours later, they came back. Every one of them. Slower world, stable rotation, turning. The pattern held. Whatever the line did, places survived it. That knowledge spread. Finally, the agencies released it. Because it was the first good news there was. The first thing that could be honestly called hope. The world is not ending. The world is changing. There is an after. People received it the way drowning people receive a rope. Not with celebration, with a desperate, exhausted gratitude. An after, just an after. That was all anyone wanted. But here is the thing the recovered stations couldn't tell us. The thing that kept me cold, even with the good news. They were automated. No people. Not one of the stations that came back had humans on site. We had instrument logs from the other side of the line, machine records, ground pulses, and power traces. We had nothing from a person. Because the populated areas the line had already crossed, the cities, the towns, those had gone dark differently. Their power came back. Their networks came back. But the messages out of them, the calls, the posts, the human voices, those came back strange. Slow, sparse. People reporting they were fine in a way that didn't sound fine. People who said they felt rested, calm. People who said the 11 hours had felt like a single long breath and that they couldn't quite remember them and didn't feel they needed to. Nobody who'd been through the line was frightened anymore. Of anything. That was the detail that wouldn't leave me. The whole world behind the line was calm, deeply, uniformly, contentedly calm. As if whatever eased the planet down had eased them down too. Slowed them to a speed it could use. I called my old supervisor, the one who told me to write everything down that first night, a lifetime ago. He'd been through the line 2 days prior, out at his place on the coast. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to know my friend was still my friend on the other side. He answered. He sounded fine. He sounded great, actually, better than I'd heard him in years. Warm and easy and unhurried. I asked him what it was like. The 11 hours. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Daniel, don't be afraid of it. When it comes, I was afraid before, like you are." And then it came, and he searched for the word. And it's kind. It's so much kinder than the spinning. You'll see. Then he said gently, "Write it down if you want to. But you won't need to anymore. After." And I understood that I had just talked to my friend for the last time. 2 days became 1 day, and on the last day, we could hear it. The beat. The slow, deep pulse the seismometers had caught on the far side of the line. It reached close enough that our own ground sensors picked it up, and then close enough that we didn't need sensors. You could feel it if you stood still on the operations floor and stopped talking. A pressure, a rhythm in the floor, in the air, in the water glass on my desk where the surface trembled in time. Slow, patient. Each beat farther apart than a heartbeat, deep as a tide. Coming, counting. Keeping time the way I'd kept time my whole life, except this clock was crossing the world and turning out the lights as it came. The floor emptied out over that last day. People went home to their families, the way you should, at the end. I don't blame a single one of them. But a few of us stayed, me, and 3 others, the kind of people who check the instruments one more time. We agreed, without much discussion, that someone should be at the desk when it reached us. Someone should be measuring. Someone should write down the last of it, to the second, while there was still a self that wanted to. I called Priya. The line reached Hawaii before Colorado. She was ahead of me on the path by a few hours. We talked while we waited. We didn't talk about physics. We talked about our lives, our families, the strange, beautiful luck of having spent these last weeks among people who understood exactly what we were seeing. She said she was glad it was me on the other desk that first night. I said I was glad it was her. Then, mid-sentence, her voice changed, softened. She said, "Oh, Daniel, it's here. I can feel it, it's..." And she paused. And when she spoke again, the fear had simply gone out of her voice, all of it, like a held breath let go. She said, "It really is kind." And then the line went quiet, the way all the lines went quiet, mid-sentence, gentle. I sat at my desk in the 43-hour day, in the long, impossible light, and I felt the beat in the floor getting closer, and I picked up my pen, because I had one more shift to work, and I intended to work it. I'm still here. I want to say that first, in case the recording is what survives. As of this sentence, I'm still here, still myself, still keeping time, and the line has not reached me yet, but it's close. I can feel it through the floor. The beat is loud now. The water in my glass dances with every pulse. Let me tell you what I'm seeing. While I can still see it clearly, while my hand is still my hand, and my words are still my words. The master clock, the one I've tended for 11 years, the most accurate timepiece in this part of the world, is starting to show it. The lag is reversing. For the first time in 3 weeks, the number is getting better. The planet quickening under us, exactly the way it did at every station right before the line arrived. The instruments are doing what they always do, telling the truth. The truth is that the edge is here. I'm not as afraid as I thought I'd be. I want to be honest about that, because I promised my family honesty, and I'll keep that promise in this too. Part of me wonders if the calm is already reaching me, ahead of the line, easing me down. Or maybe it's just that I've had 3 weeks to be afraid, and I've used up most of my fear. Or maybe my supervisor was right, and it really is kind, and some part of me already knows it. I went home before this last shift. I want you to know that. I held my family. My wife and I decided we'd be together when it came to them. I'm going to leave here before it reaches the building, drive home, be in that house with my arms around my children when the line crosses us. That's the plan. I have time. The line is slow. I've measured it. I know exactly how long I have, down to the minute, because knowing the number is the one thing I've always been able to do. But I wanted to be at the desk for this part, for the reading, because somebody who understood what it was should be the one to write down the moment our clocks met the edge. Not for the world. The world is calm now, behind the line, and doesn't need my notes. For the record, for the principle of it, because we were the ones who saw it first, on a quiet night 3 weeks ago, and it feels right that one of us should see it last too, and say so, plainly, to whoever or whatever listens to recordings after. So here's the reading. The official time and the true time, the clock in the sky, drifted apart for 3 weeks by more. Every hour, they're coming back together. The lag is closing. The gap is shrinking. Soon they'll agree again. Soon the clock in the sky will say the same thing for the first time since 2:14 in the morning on the first night. A new agreement. A slower one. A world that turns at a speed something else can use. The beat is very loud now. I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to go home. Before the line reaches the building, I want to put down what I think it is, not what I know. We never knew. But I've had 3 weeks at the closest desk to it, and I owe the record my best guess. I don't think it's a disaster. I want to say that clearly. A disaster doesn't keep a beat. A disaster doesn't move in careful sequence and stop to settle each place it passes and leave the people behind it calm and whole. Whatever this is, it is doing something on purpose, with patience, with what I can only call care. It found a planet spinning too fast for its purpose, and it is slowing that planet down, gently, section by section, to a speed it can use, and it is not destroying what's already here. It's keeping us slower, quieter. But here, Priya asked on the first night what we were being slowed down for. I don't have that answer. I don't think any of us will get it, or not in a form we'd understand. Maybe a world that turns once every 40-some hours is a world that's easier to reach across, or easier to inhabit, or easier to hold on to, for something that lives at a scale we can't measure. Maybe we've spent our whole history spinning too fast to be noticed, and now we've been noticed. And the noticing comes with hands that adjust the dials. I keep thinking about that word the geophysicist used. Keep. You slow a centrifuge before you open it. You ease something down that you intend to keep. I don't know if being kept is good or bad. I don't think those words apply at this scale. I think it just is. The way the tides are, the way gravity is, the way the long, slow turning of the planet always was before something decided it should turn slower. But I'll tell you the thing that lets me drive home in a minute and hold my children without screaming. Every place the line has passed is still there, still alive, still turning under a sun that still rises, just later. There is an after. My supervisor is in it. Priya's in it now, on the far side of her quiet line. My friends are in it. They sound calm. They sound, against all my training, happy. So maybe the honest last entry in the log of the world that spun fast is this. It didn't end. It was eased down and kept and changed by something that took its time and did not break us. I think that's the truth. I've spent my life trying to tell the truth to the second. That's my best reading of it. The beat just changed. It's not coming from outside the building anymore. It's in the building. It's in the room. I can feel each pulse in my chest, slow and deep and even. And the master clock I'm watching it, the lag, just hit 0. The clock and the sky agree. For the first time in 3 weeks, the time I keep and the time the world keeps are the same number. I made my agreement with time a long time ago. The night I took this job. I'd keep it honestly. I'd write it down. I'd be at the desk. I'm at the desk. The lights are doing what the stations described. Dimming, not failing easing. The instruments are still reporting, steady, truthful to the last. The seismometer says the ground beneath this building is moving in that slow, deep rhythm now. The count, the keeping time, and it's not frightening. He was right. It isn't frightening. It's the most patient thing I have ever felt. I'm not going to make it home. I understand that now. The line came faster at the end than my measurements said. Or maybe time itself bent here at the edge, and there's no driving out ahead of it. So I'm doing the other thing I promised. I'm telling the truth, plainly, to whoever listens after. To my wife, to my kids. I'm sorry I'm not in the house, but I'm not afraid. And I love you. And I'll be in the after, slower and quiet and waiting. And you'll come through your own long 11 hours and find me there. The clock and the sky agree. It's so much kinder than the spinning. I'm going to set the pen down.